I also want to address, if you're comfortable about it, and Al or Chris Butler said to me, we were the first interracial band and no one gave a shit.
Oh no, I am comfortable with it. It takes a lot. Nothing really knocks me off my feet. Questions about, yeah, that was Al said, well, you know, he says, I talked to Kenny a lot. And I said, well, I'm sure there's things that you can't address that I can. And that was one of, you know, yeah, we were, I put the Disciples together. So, yeah, in fact, I was swimming with Chris and he put that in an article. Everett, I hope you don't mind it. Yeah, sometimes he calls me Everett. You know, but, you know, I mentioned that you're the first black guy, you know, first interracial band.
Yeah, I think that.
You know, I hadn't thought of it. But I'm actually, I was the first black dude that had an all-white band, and he cracked up. I said, you got to look at it from two sides here. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Yeah, you know, so he was cracking up. But yeah, that was weird, because I would, you know, just going to Orange.
You had a real diverse.
I don't see race. It's the weirdest thing. My brother is a little different. I mean, he's not a racist. And maybe it's just because of the era I grew up in. And even in the Disciples, unless somebody actually pointed it out, we go, oh yeah, you're a black kid in the band. Oh yeah, that's right. Then there's a black kid in the band. Who? I'm going, you know, who is this guy?
And I'm sure it prompted a few girls to be a little crazy.
Never. You know, it's funny. Music like crossed all the borders. We never got hassled. It never came up at any of our shows. Never was a minister who played harmonica all the way through theology school.
Wow.
And he was from his folks were from Alabama. So he was real blues. I mean, that Jesse Owens is his uncle.
Wow.
So that's, you know.
Jesse Owens came and talked to my 5th grade class.
Yeah,
that was so cool.
To me, it was just Uncle Jesse. And so Dad played all through. So he was listening to people like Big Maybell, Little Walter, you know, Muddy Waters.
All the chess guys.
All the stuff, the real stuff. And my mom was listening to Big Band, Duke, you know, Count Basie. And so I was always listening, you know, I always listened to music. And they started a band in school. I went immediately in the choir, but I don't know how I always signed for some reason. And then I just went to the band room, and I couldn't read a note of music, but I could play drums. So I played drums for a long time. And then we had a talent show. Actually, it was before that. Joe Marino and Avery Friedman. Attorney Avery Friedman, I think Al told you. They used to play in the all-purpose room outside the cafeteria. And for some reason, they let them spin records at lunchtime. So they were playing Dion, and it was just a three-piece. Avery was playing piano, and Joe was singing, and I don't know who was. They might have had a bass player. I don't remember. But it was kind of fun to watch them. And then they did a talent show. And a couple of guys I went to school with, because nobody was talking electric guitar. You know, we all listened to, you know, Dwayne Eddy and all those people, but there was a talent show, and two of my mates played guitar, Ed Henry and Kenny Simmons. I actually remember Richie Wander and Randy Wishusen, who lives out this way. And they played, and I was sitting there, and I was sitting there in the audience, and I went, this is what I gotta do. It wasn't even, there was never a second thought. It was like somebody hit a switch, and I went, because I'm actually pretty quiet. I'm more talkative now that I'm older. But when I was quiet, you know, the stage was my world. I could get loose on stage. And after that, I just went, I gotta have a band. So I tried to put some little stupid band together. I went home. We called it CF and the Jammers.
What year are you talking? Pre-Beatles, obviously.
Yeah, 63, 64.
Okay.
Oh, yes, before the Beatles.
Okay.
But I was CF and the Jammers because I was, you know, I just got my driver's license and I could speed shift, so I figured that would be it. and everybody was naming Dion the Belmont, so it was kind of trendy. You put your name and the so-and-so.
Yeah.
And I started meeting people. Met J.C. Hosken, the guitarist that got killed. Didn't have a bass player. I was playing something. That's when I met Al. He stuck his head in the window, and I went right next to Orange. I said, "Do you play bass?" And he goes, "Yeah." He'd never ever seen a bass, but I'd never seen a bass guitar either. So it was, and that was it. I mean, that was it. And I put the Disciples together, and we got those guys. They had some Donnie Pizes playing drums. And from that point on, I've always been a fan of 3 different versions of that. 3 or 4 different versions of the Disciples.
So tell me about the first Disciples gig. How exhilarating was it to do it?
Scared to death. I remember I was terrified. You know, we had little homemade amps. But it was all our peers, you know, it was all our school kids, so we knew we couldn't do too bad. So, you know, and we were the only band. We were the band. We literally, we were the first band. Nobody, there was other bands. Tom King and Starfire, Sonny Geraci was out playing. Bo and the Jesters. I remember these from a Battle of the Bands at Southfield. They gave us a lineup sheet. Remember one of the bands was Bo and the Jesters. I'll never forget. Didn't know who they were. And then Tom King.
Yeah, Tom King and the Starfires turned into the Outsiders, right? Yeah.
Tony Badanza was playing. They were, you know, I was too young to really go where they were going. They were 18, and because Geraci's was right down Mooresville, still up on Mooresville. And I remember when Tom Let Me came out. I went, man, this guy's great. And I could mimic Tom. I could sing just like him. Oh, that's very cool. And then it just became a thing. Like music just became everything to me.
Yeah.
And then we were booked, I'm sure Al told you, we were booked every weekend for years.
What kind of places were you playing?
Oh, all the temples, all the synagogues, all the high schools, all the keg parties, all the sock hops, all the proms.
Church basement, coffee shop thing, or coffee.
Teen town.
Yeah.
We were too rowdy for coffee shops.
Okay.
We were way too rowdy for it. We did play a lot of church things though.
Yeah, that's what I meant, where they had the coffee gatherings, like Bruce Murphy that used to do sound at Peabody's. He was telling me his first gig was doing sound at Plymouth Church for these youth coffee.
For the life of me, I can't remember where our first job was. It was probably a keg party. I can't remember. It's kind of a foggy moment. Like I said, because I never stopped. And the rest of the guys, you know, I was always happy. You know, like I said, there was a couple different versions. After Al graduated, and who else left? Jay went to military. Then I kept going. I knew I said I got to keep playing. I wasn't sure which direction I was going to go. But then I had a second form of the Disciples. I had a Matt Lewis, and then playing guitar for a bit at bass. And then George Wildman was playing guitar for a while. Kurt Morgenstern. He just could play the hell out of Kinks. The kid was fast as a rat's ass. He was so fast. And then I ended up with, I had a show to do at Orange. And I couldn't find a guitar player. And somebody said, well, call Donnie Baker. And I knew Donnie. We were kind of rivals because he had the missing links with Mark Ostrowski and Billy Bass was actually being their manager at the time. So Donnie came up and played. You know, this kid's too cool. His hair was down to his knees, and he could play. And the next thing I know, he's calling me, going, well, join the Missing Links. I said, okay, so but you got to play bass. And that was like Al. I knew a couple chords on guitar. So I did a couple shows playing bass with the Links at Beaumont High School and things. And then we were doing it, and then next thing I know, he's calling me. I don't know, I'm into the Hooley era. He goes, there's a band I think you ought to check out. He says, we ought to check this out. And that's how Hooley came to be. But that interim with the Disciples was a long, long run.
What year did the Disciples cease?
We still haven't ceased.
Well,
no.
The golden era.
Yeah, I would say.
Like before you stopped playing in the 60s with them.
Late 66. I remember that because we did Hooley opened the show, so that was 67. We opened the show at Orange for Left Bank.
Wow.
And I still have the program for that. I have some stuff I'll bring out for you to look at.
Cool.
I just didn't get a chance to go through it.
I understand.
And you can scan it or do what you want to do with it.
That'd be wonderful.
But I have a program for Left Bank and E.T. Hooley. They did Walk Away Renee, and then we did it. Hooley did it. We did it better.
The same night, same show?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that.
No, we played better than they did. You know, and I sang better than these guys did. I'm not patting myself on the back, but my strong point's always been vocals. You know, I didn't start playing guitar until I was 21. So, and that was kind of the end of the Disciples. Because Al went to college, you know, like I said, I was putting in filler guys. And it was like putting, you know, after Brian Jones died, yeah, there was the Rolling Stones, but it changed. And then I changed, and I knew that my career was going to be music, and I knew the rest of the guys. It was not
a hobby.
It was a hobby. They were good players. John Burrus and went on. I think he played with the Wishful Thinkers, and Chris was always a great drummer. Chris was always really eclectic. I loved the way he played. I still love the way he plays. He's got this approach that's just insane, which is much different than Donnie Pizer. Donnie Pizer was a very rudimental, good drummer, but
nothing creative.
Marching band.
Yeah.
You know, and he was, you know, class president. There was no way he was going to make music his career. His parents would have shot it.
Yeah.
So I was the only, you know, it was me. Al had to go to college, and then it was the Hooley days, and from.
Talk about the start of Hooley. I mean, what was the nucleus?
Literally, Donnie and I were playing, and we were trying to merge the missing links with the rest of the Disciples, because, like I said, Marcus Strowski was singing for the Missing Links. They did Behind Locked Doors. That's the only record I think that was a hit. And I met Bass, and Bass said, we got to do this.
Did he take you over? Did he manage you guys?
Bass was managing at the time. He took on the Missing Links. Because like I said, they had, Behind Locked Doors was actually getting played. It was kind of like It's Cold Outside. And it was local play, but it was getting good play. And Bass has always been good at that business. And so we hooked up, and he calls me. Donnie says, come here to this band, and I don't know whose house it was at. It was over by Shaker. And the Hooley bunch. And Jimmy Lay had been singing with Hooley. He was the first vocalist with Hooley, which I didn't know.
They're putting out that Smog Veil's putting out a Jimmy Lay compilation.
Jimmy would not have been, and it has nothing to do with me. A little bit, not a lot. Hooley would have never had the success that they had with Jimmy Lay. Jimmy was not the singer for that band. He's really a blues guy. I was kind of I was a rock and roller.
Yeah.
But I'd listened to Motown all my life. So my approach at songs, when I'd go home, my brothers and sisters would be listening to Motown. You know, Smokey, you know, the Tops.
Martha Vandal.
I'd go to school. I'd be up in my room and I'd be listening to Stones, the Animals. But it merged. And then my mom, like I said, you know, had real structured music because she was a musician. She was a dancer. So my approach to vocals was really different. And that was it was an asset. I didn't realize it, but it was a big asset. Because everybody was coming out, like Paul Rogers, and and the singers were coming out. And I was a stand-up singer. Like I said, the guitar was an afterthought. And that was the influence. And then once that happened, Hooley took off, and we could have done a lot.
So it was Hooley like a psychedelic band?
Yeah, we were doing. We did the first version of H.O., the slow.
The Leaves version.
Paul, we did with Disciples. We did H.O. Like the Leaves.
Okay.
And then when we got the Hooley boys together, and God, the first song I played with those guys in the living, like your living room, everybody stopped and went, it was magic. And that's the only word I can use. We were afraid to say what we were thinking. The band was just incredible. They were all great players. Paul was a seasoned player. Everybody that was playing at that spot then was really good at their game.
So obviously Hooley moved beyond the high school dance hop stuff.
We went, our first practice, we were better. I'm not saying because I was in the band, but our first practice, we were better than anybody in Cleveland. I mean, the structure of that band, Paul Klonowski was a little bit older, 2 years older. He had been playing with Stress and Glenn Schwartz and was a blues aficionado. You know, him and Henry Vestine from Canned Heat were the two people who really knew all the blues guys. You know, and so Paul brought in a lot of the material. Even when we were doing Yardbirds, we were doing I'm Not Talking, really, because the Yardbirds started doing blues things.
Sure.
So we had that, and Baker was listening to Lonnie Mack, and so we were really eclectic. So when we put it together, it was really, really strong. I mean, really, really strong. We couldn't write for crap, though.
How many originals were produced?
I think we did 3 or 4 originals during the course. Even though we were in New York, we did 3 or 4.
All right, so tell me, like, the Cleveland part of the E.T. Hooley, like, what clubs were you playing? What times?
Name them.
Of all of them.
We were it. They wouldn't do a show without Hooley playing.
Wow.
They would do Teen Towns, Battle of the Bands down at the Allen Theater. And we'd fly back in from New York. It got to the point where they wanted us to come in and play, but we couldn't participate anymore because we were pros. Yeah.
So, tell me about going to New York. Who pulled the trigger?
Barry Weingart.
Okay.
We did a couple shows, and there's a lady, Pat Englander. Her dad used to have Englander Motors, Nash Ramblers up on Shaker.
Yeah.
No, up on the Chagrin. But anyway, she was pretty well off. She had a big house, so we started practicing there, and it was a real deal. This was not, let's get together next week and play a couple songs. It was every day for 6 or 7 hours. I mean, we really crafted what we did.
Yeah.
And we were, like I said, we got the first 45 of Jimi Hendrix, H.O. And actually, we did the A side of that song was 51st anniversary. Somebody's ever heard it's Jimi Hendrix. It's an English cut. The B side was H.O. I heard the B side in the basement, so we got to do this.
It's on Track Records, that one.
I don't know which record.
Yeah, because they were signed to the Who's label. They were their Hendrix Experience was the first thing that the Who put out on Track.
Okay. But I could sing that stuff. And this is not about me, but I could sing this stuff. I could sing. So I could do Hey Joe, and I could take it to another level, even past what Hendrix wasn't a singer, he was a storyteller. Okay. Like Dylan. Yeah, they're both great.
It's almost like rap, but folk rap or blues rap or rock rap, But when you look at like Subterranean Homesick Blues and the cadence, and it's no different than rap.
Because the vandal stole the handle. What a great line. Yeah, actually, Hooley got written up. I forget who wrote it or something in New York. It said E.T. Hooley took songs, did other people's songs better than E.T. Hooley. We did Moby Grape, we did Omaha, Hey Grandma, we did better than Moby Grape. When Billy Bass had Record Revolution, I used to hang around, because I was still with Lynx, I was part of Missing Link, so I said, I gotta play guitar, so I said, here, see if you can play this. They gave me a bass. He says, he taught me the bass line to do Doors tune. Love Me Two Times.
Yeah.
He says, you played it really good, play bass. I said, okay. And we used to ride around Donnie Baker. In fact, the hat that Gene Schwartz still wears is Glenn's hat.
Huh?
That's Glenn's hat. You know, Glenn gave it to me years ago. And then, but Glenn was Glenn.
Oh, he was incredible. I mean,
Glenn was one of the best guitarists I've ever heard, period.
and it's going to end up being a Netflix movie, his life at some point. It's such a crazy tale, and it always was about music. I mean, seeing that guy do what he could do on guitar and it just flow out of his body.
Oh no, you couldn't. And then I started playing with PG&E, and when you wanted it, are you ready? And I'm like, are you crazy? We did it, and I had another guitarist, also from Cleveland, Charlie Allen, and but Glenn and I were good friends till the very end. He was playing down at Major Hoop.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize he was there, and I had a house I bought a house by St. Ignatius, and I said, Glenn's playing down there. I said, oh, let's run down and see Glenn. So I went in, I'm sitting in the back, and just watching Glenn. And then he had all this following, all these people sitting down with their Bibles and stuff. And somebody says, you can't really talk to Glenn. And he was sweating like crazy, it's summertime. And I said, oh yeah. And Glenn's like wiping his head, he's got his Bible. And I didn't even think about it. I went up to the bar and said, give me a bottle of water. And I walked up to Glenn, I said, hey Glenn. He looked, hey Chip, what's going on? So I handed him the water, so the other captain, he drank it, and I went back, and the people went, oh. I said, Glenn actually took that water from you. Oh, he wouldn't take anything because he was paranoid that somebody would slip him something.
Yeah, give him acid or whatever.
Yeah, because that's what happened. He really overdosed.
Yeah.
He STP'd right out. And I always thought that was fascinating. I never forgot that. They said, well, Glenn won't take anything. He won't take drinks or anything from anybody. He said, but he just reached out and took it. I said, Glenn and I he trusted me, which was not. I thought that was great. We didn't lose that trust for each other. He knew I would never do anything.
Yeah.
And now I'm talking about Glenn, but what a talent.
So I saw Wolfgang's Vault, a show with E.T. Hooley listed on. How many times did you play the Fillmore or the Carousel or out in California? Were those Fillmore East shows or?
In California, that was the second E.T. Hooley form. That's when we had KJ Knight from Boy Dukes playing drums, and he was a great drummer. And Donnie Baker wasn't in the band. Paul, our original drummer, did a Glenn Medley. His mind kind of vacated. He was a great guy, but he was really clinically was schizophrenic, paranoid, and delusional. We just had his wake 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
I actually have some pictures of the original Hooley. It was the first time we were together in a room in 30 years.
Wow.
Ever since our reunion.
Wow.
But I forgot where I was going. Oh yeah, in California, we pulled into we drove into California, and all our crap was in a trailer, and the band was hot. E.T. Hooley was just an incredible band. And we were just starting to write, do our own things, and they were having a protest rally in front of Pasadena College, and they were all set up on the stage. These bands were sitting up. And we walked up to one of the guys and said, well, he said, you got a trailer? I said, yeah, we just came in from Cleveland, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, this is just a free rally. You guys want to play? Yeah, we just driven out of town. We had nothing packed. He said, yeah, let's pull stuff up. We set up on the stage. And the guy that managed the Rose Palace was in.
The Rose Palace?
Yeah, that's where they built the float for the Rose Palace.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we didn't know he was there, and he says, yeah, and the guy, his name was Tommy Nieto. He says, you guys are really good. He says, you want to play tonight? Open a show on a bill. I said, yeah, of course, trying to find a place to live. We didn't know where it was. He gave us the address. He goes, oh, it's called the Rose Palace. I'm thinking, it's a bar. It's the Rose Palace. You could play 2 games of football in this place. They built all the floats for the Rose Parade. Yeah. This place was mammoth. It was a cave. And opening night, it was it was Led Zeppelin. So they were on, and we stood there going. And then we became the house band.
Wow.
We got written up there. That's who wrote that article. Said these guys do cover songs better than the artists. Yeah, we got to work with some Zeppelin, Joe Cocker, Big Mama Thornton.
Wow. I mean, that's bridging eras there. I mean, she must have been what, like 60 then?
God, I don't know. Yeah, I tell you what. Remember when Bob Dylan went on Johnny Cash?
Yeah.
That's the night we played.
Wow.
That was. I'll never forget that because.
That was just shown in that Ken Burns country documentary.
Joe Cocker was playing that night, and Big Mama Thornton. Then we opened, and we did our thing, and there was time for them to go on. And I remember Cocker and Big Mama Thornton going, we're not going on, we're in the dressing room. We're not going on until we watch Bob Dylan. So we all sat in the back and watched Bob Dylan on Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash, yeah.
Then they got through, then they went up and they did this thing. Nobody left. Everybody's out there talking. Everybody was stoned in the audience anyway. But
what did people think of that, since it was really like his country coming out in post motorcycle? You know, he was
Johnny Cash.
No, Dylan.
Dylan.
I mean, that was like, you know, he put out John Wesley Harding, you know, after the motorcycle wreck. But what was the people's reaction to seeing country, Bob?
By the time we started playing, so that had to be 66, 67. Our audience, people that followed, like, would follow this James Gang or Hooley, were really tuned into Electric. You know, everybody was the Electric bands, you know, everybody was, you know. So I think it was, they never thought about Dylan playing acoustic. I think they would not have liked Dylan playing acoustic because it was too coffee house.
Yeah. They missed it when he was acoustic,
right,
before he went electric.
Yeah, and then, you know, the people that were purists didn't like it when he played electric.
Yeah, they called him Judas.
Yeah.
You're a traitor.
Yeah. So no, that was good, and we got to do some good shows. You know.
What would you call your best brush with, you know? I mean, to start with Zeppelin. I mean, gosh, you're putting the bar pretty high.
Yeah. Well, everybody that came into the Rose Palace, they only booked national acts. Upcoming, you know. It was Led Zeppelin and the Byrds.
What an
And I remember we walked in and the place was packed, thousands of people. And I remember the Byrds had just recorded Jesus Is Just Alright.
Yeah.
And they opened their set with that.
Wow.
And I'm standing there going, I know I'm high, but I think this is really happening.
Yeah, and they had gone from psychedelic to country as well.
Right. Because they were kind of country, like rock, kind of like Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah.
You know, they turned that corner and it was a magic time. It was really a magic time.
Well, your story of, you know, getting out of the truck and getting a gig is sort of like how Buffalo Springfield started. Neil and Stills, you know, he saw Neil's hearse and it's like, I know that guy, and it met the band. The band with Neil, though, that I am most intrigued by is the Minor Birds before Buffalo Springfield. Rick James and Neil Young were signed in Motown.
Rick James?
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
And Rick James got popped for draft evasion, and that's what broke up the Minor Birds. So when that happened, Neil drove to California.
You're kidding.
No. Can you imagine Neil Young and Rick James in a band together?
No, I can't. That's funny.
One, you know, your opposite.
That's crazy.
And my gosh, I mean, some of the tracks came out like a few years ago. They put out a 45, and none of it blew me away. You know, but the potential.
Oh, is that crazy?
just thinking of the germination, and you think about it, you know, the 60s were the first time youth culture was mushing everybody together and reinventing itself. And
I'm listening, I'm flashing, you got my mind going.
Go with it.
When we first got in New York, we played Electric Circus. And that opening night was the Grateful Dead.
Wow.
When they had both drummers. They had
So you opened for the Dead?
No, we were in the club. I don't know, we may have.
Here, let's see.
I really can't remember. I mean, because we also became a house band at the Electric Circus. So we played for some, the McCoys came in, we played with them one night. Who else came in?
Another band that went from playing straight Kinks kind of rock and roll to, boy oh boy, that last McCoys album was heavy as hell.
Yeah, well they were. Yeah, that's some funny stuff. Yeah, Rick Derringer was a handful.
I'll never forget, he opened up for Todd Rundgren New Year's Eve at the Coliseum in about 78 or it was 79 when the Iran hostage crisis just started. Oh my gosh, the political rant that Rick Derringer went on there. It was 10 minutes long and it was unbelievable, you know.
It's funny because it was almost expected during the war, Vietnam War. If a band didn't go up and protest, somehow you missed the boat. You had to acknowledge that you were totally anti-war, and it was part of the thing. And I thought it was, you know, especially after they lost Jay. So I'm trying to figure who else we played. We played the Circus, and you got to remember, a lot. Those days were so fuzzy. Like I remember, we played a lot of places, and Disciples played. We played probably every place in Cleveland. We played a lot of the armories. The Chagrin Armory, I'm sure Al filled you in on those.
No, but I've always romantically looked at that building.
Yeah, that. We played the Town Hall. Like I'm sure, because Al told me, he said, well, I mentioned Bobby Goldsboro. We played Bobby Goldsboro, Cannibal and the Headhunters.
Wow.
I'll never forget Cannibal and the Headhunters at the Chagrin Armory. It's funny, the things that you remember. They're standing on the side of this stage, and there were Hispanic guys, and they were wearing, you know, the dress shoes and thing, and they were wearing the thick and thin socks, you know, like I went, wow, they're wearing, you know, like dress socks. They had the rib socks.
Oh wow!
And the guy's patting his foot, and I'm looking at his socks, and I'm going, look at those cool socks. I'm going, because they were grown-ups, you know, they were older than we were, so.
And coming from a different culture.
It's a totally different culture. But it's weird, I never looked at them as anything other than a band. Some people go, they're Hispanic, they're what I don't know. Never noticed. You know, I just don't see that.
So tell me about your guys' encounter with Slim Harkin.
Yeah, we played at a club called Blues Image.
Yeah.
Which is right across from the Aquarius Theater.
Yeah, that's where Blues Image, the band, came out too. Yeah.
And they were playing. We played because our name started spreading through because the Rose Palace. We got a lot of exposure, and he came in and went, I like the way you guys play. And Shaky Jake was the harmonica player who was playing. So they were all sitting around, and he goes, "You boys play good." And he says, Slim Harper was very quiet. Real quiet. He was a giant bass. Real quiet. I think I'd like to play with you boys, you gentlemen. He goes, I'm going to Italy. So would you be interested in going? Oh, by all means. So he said, well, and I want to record a couple of things for the new tour. He says, would you guys do the recording with me? And we did. It was like KJ was playing drums from the Dukes, who was a rock drummer. Richard was playing like a kid from the Burbs, playing blues. And then Slim, and then I had a SG, and I'm playing this thing. At that point, I could play rhythm guitar, and I was starting to play some lead. Then I was always a good rhythm guitar player. So I'm playing my guitar, and Slim looks at me and goes, well, you guys sound good, but do me a favor. He's looking at me, what's that? Play my guitar. Well, good, I get to play Slim Harpo's guitar. The strings are that high. The action, I could barely push the strings down. It was like a Gibson 330 or something, nice guitar. The action was terrible. And that's what I played it. And then he actually rehearsed, we rehearsed a couple times in our Pasadena house, because that's when we were still playing Rose Palace. And he came over, and the last thing he did was he came over and he taped a note to the garage door. He says, I'm going back, I forgot where he was living at the time, down south. He said, I'm going home, and I'll see you guys in a week or so. And on a yellow piece of legal pad, I'll never forget it. And I took the note and I said, I got a note written by Slim Harpo, you know. And I folded it up and I put it in my scrapbook. And I kept it for years. And then the next thing we know, we got a call. He had a massive heart attack. Had never been sick a day in his life. I actually have a picture of him, of us in the studio with him. It's in my phone, if I'll have to boot it to you.
That'd be great.
No, okay, I got that with Slim and I just looked at it. I'll make sure I send that to you.
Cool, cool.
And so we didn't get to go to Italy. And I lost my note. I didn't lose it. The keyboard player from Ricky Nelson, when he went down, we were working on a project together. And I knew I'd come back to Cleveland for Orange House 25th reunion, 20th reunion. So I told Andy, I said that I was moving, in the process of moving. He said, just leave all your stuff here. So I put all my yearbooks, all my clothes, all my car tools. I was building another car. And so that was in May. They did the reunion, or June. And I stuck around. I was with Al. I said, well, there's no reason to go back to LA right now. We're working this project. I'm going to stay in Cleveland. I miss my friends. I'll go back out when winter comes. And I was at Al's house. I had to remind him. He says, yeah, I remember when Andy got killed. I said, you ought to. I was standing in your living room. It's funny how fate works. The guitarist that got killed, a real good buddy, JC's girlfriend lived a street away from Al, and we were still in touch. I'd just gotten back in touch with her. And we're standing there, and the phone rang, and it was Marge calling Al's wife, Lori. And I saw Lori's face go. And she didn't know I had been working with Ricky, you know, with his keyboard. I actually knew Rick. And she turned around, and she looked at me, she goes, oh, that was Marge, and she said, that Ricky Nelson just got killed. And I was a buddy of mine was from LA was with him. And he knew, because we were both helping the keyboard player rebuild he had a limo. And I looked at Bob and I went, without even, I said, Andy was on that plane. I knew he was on that plane. I mean, he didn't call me, tell me he was on it. But that was a really high-paying job. That was, they were going to Texas, I thought it was LA. But Ricky had a job. He just put out Garden Party. It was just becoming a strong hit. And he paid well on the road. And I knew Andy was, when he was in town, that it was his keyboard player. And that just freaked me out. So I lost him on and I never went back. I never went back to
LA.
I was so depressed. I mean, he was a good friend. And then I talked to his Andy's wife's sister. I call, condolences and get the lowdown on what happened. She goes, Lisa's so depressed. So they had a son who was 9 months when he was eating. She goes, she's staying with me, and my mother sold the house. She's going to sell the house. So I said, okay. Well, she sold the lock, stock, and barrel. She didn't take anything. And I was really angry because everything was in there. But at the same time, what she lost, I lost my books. She lost her husband.
Right.
And it was the weirdest thing. He had this premonition. The whole time I was working on his car, he had a cool Strutz limo, like a '59 Caddy, looked like a Batmobile. And he'd go on the road with Ricky, because they almost got killed in that plane before. That was Jerry Lee Lewis's DC-8.
Wow.
They bought that from Jerry Lee Lewis. And once going to cross the desert, they had to put on the desert because the plane somewhat screwy. And Andy, every time he'd go on a gig, he'd look at Ian, who was just walking, just starting to toddle around. Oops, he'd go, Andy had a really bizarre sense of humor. Oops, Daddy's gonna get killed in the plane. And he'd get on it. No, he would say that. And I go, man, me and Lisa go, don't say that. He go, but that was just his sense of humor. And I realized now he was really nervous about the plane. That's how he was dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the money was great. And sure in hell, man, he got killed in that plane. And he had a premonition about that plane. I mean, he would joke about it. Now, he said that more than once.
Huh.
You know, he used to look at me and goes, I'm going to die on that plane.
So you've talked about fate and destiny and all that stuff. I firmly believe there's some kind. I don't know if you call it fate or destiny. Some kind of code that pushes us along energy-wise, and there's too many coincidences that you say you can't write this stuff. And tell me your best. Is it a coincidence, or did the maker design this?
No, it was a design. The word serendipity, and it was. I think things are just destined to happen. I don't think you can change it. So you just go along for the ride. I should be talking about the disciples. I'm talking about me, but I had some. No.
This is not only the disciples. I want to hear. This is cultural history of everything.
In the drug. Well, I don't have to tell you.
No, tell. Let's talk about it.
Hippies. When you go, hippies, love beats, dope. Which button are you going? Well, I had hit them all. I've OD'd a couple times. I shouldn't even be here. Sometimes I go, how am I still here? Because I was really destructive. I had a lot of issues. Everybody has family issues.
Sure.
But I was dealing with racial issues. I was crossing boundaries. At that time, I started realizing I was doing other things. Charlie Allen, he fronted PG&E, and Charlie and I were roommates for a long time. And we would talk, and we had similar experiences. Doing what we did, blues became identifiable with non-ethnic folks. I hate calling white or black. But we're talking real. So
it took the Stones to introduce them to
right. And black people, even today, don't want to associate with blues. They think it's cotton field music.
Yeah.
And I'm going. So I was dealing with all my friends who were really wealthy. They're not snobs.
Yeah.
And they were playing like the Wishful Thinkers and the Disciples, and that was cool. But then I got into the big world. A couple towns you go through. I remember going through one town, we were driving somewhere, and I was with Richard at Shack, and there was a stop sign. It was full of bullet holes. It was late at night, like off of old Route 66, and had long hair, spray paint, long hair, beware. Nigga, don't let the sun set on your head in this town tonight.
Wow.
And that's when the lights started coming on. It was like, and Richard used to have to tuck his hair under his hat, because his hair was really long. He had to push it under his cowboy hat. And I was like, well, this is real stuff. And how was I going to approach this? So I did what I usually do. I just ignored stuff. It was the only, whatever was going to happen was going to happen. Al never told me any comments, but with the Disciples, I never heard them. I never heard a thing. If anybody made a crack, it'd be me. I always beat people to the race card.
Yeah.
If I thought you were going to say something,
you own it.
Yeah. If I thought you were a racist, I'd smear it on you. I'd be laughing and cracking up, and it would just disarm people. Whatever they were thinking, I already said it. So.
Humor and shock value is a real good weapon.
Insane. I didn't realize it until I got older.
So you were numbing yourself and not dealing with dope, But did you see the upside of a lot of the drugs that make you be more aware and open? And
it was totally aware. My brother's a great bass player. He's out in L.A. And he was working with David Carradine's band.
Wow.
And
I didn't know. I knew the other Carradine. The one got an Oscar award for I'm Easy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know David Carradine. But I love freaking Kung Fu and Barbara Hershey.
David had a band. He had a little Oriental girl playing violin. She was madly in love with him. That's why he kept her. I forgot the name of his band, but my brother ended up playing with them for a while. Where was I going with that?
Dope.
Yeah, oh yeah. So my brother, saw me go through some really rough times. I was doing a lot of coke toward the end. I was doing heroin 1 year, coke the next year, and whatever I could. It was part of it. You play a show and somebody go up to you and they go, here. I didn't go out and look for it. I didn't have to. It was always in my face. But my brother probably, when we were playing with PG&E, because he ended up playing with Frank and Charlie Allen, we were the last version of PG&E. And when I quit drinking 34 years ago, altogether. Because I drank a lot. I mean, a lot. Between that and my buzz. My brother told me after, about 15 years ago, he says, I never wanted to tell you this. I said, what? He goes, but he said, you still play really well. He says, but you never played the same after you quit drinking. And I knew it. It's weird, I never said it out loud, but as I got sober, I quit on my birthday. This girl was madly in love with her. It's another story. But I quit. And I can quit stuff, it's really weird. I quit heroin like that, I can just go, no, I'm done. And I was still playing shows. And I knew I was losing something. And it was that ability to get real loose on stage.
Yeah. Get in the zone.
Yeah, now when I play, I'm hearing other things and I'm thinking about arrangements. I'm still playing, but I'm thinking, not technically, but I'm more in tune with what's going on behind me. When I was doing drugs, it was like, they're drunk. Not drunk, I couldn't play, but when I was in an altered state, the other side comes out. Mm-hmm. They always say, from the mouths of drunks come the truth. Sometimes you don't want to say something, it just comes out. And you go, why did I say that? I was drunk, I shouldn't have said that. Well, it's the same thing with music. If you're uninhibited, if I hear something musically, if it popped into my head, I wouldn't even think, I would just do it. And I would do it. If I wanted to play this, I would just do it. There's no thought. It was an extension. And as I got sober, the connection, I started thinking through my instrument, which made it maybe technically better at times, but it lost the spontaneity. And I still fight with that. And my brother says, please don't start drinking, but I'm just telling you, you played better. And I know it. But I can't drink, I'm an alcoholic. So, and this one girl, like I said, she closed the door of my door. She was standing on a ledge. I went up there. She looked just like Toadie. Not Toadie feels like Shelley Winters, big Jewish girl. I was madly in love with her. She was just a riot. I fell in love with her. I didn't know it. My every waking moment was there. And on my birthday, I forgot which birthday it was, 34th, I guess, 35th. I went up and she met me at the door and I was so drunk. She was just crying. She says, if I have to see you like this, I don't want to see you. I quit that day. And she died 2 months later.
Oh, shit. You got 2 good months, though.
And, yeah. I'll be driving along now and start crying. I mean, whew.
A song that makes you think of her or something? Or
I'll just think of her. I hear her laugh. And she was a big girl. She must have weighed 220 if she weighed an ounce. She looked just like Shelley Winters. She used to go to stores and say, can I have your autograph? We'd laugh, she'd sign it. And my brother asked me, he says, you know, you never drank. I said, I promised her I would never drink. And although she's gone, I'll never drink again. That's a very painful, that's one of the worst days of my life. Yeah, I got that phone call. And the second was when my guitar player buddy got killed. I was doing a show, and I think the James Gang were, I was doing something, I was doing another band with, in LA when Hooley broke up. Richard went and started doing something else, and I put another band together. It wasn't Hooley though. And I had the drummer from, I took Ted Nugent's drummer and his bass player. So Ted and I don't get along at all. Robbie Ruska, and the band was smoking. And a kid from Orange came out, and he was sitting on the stone smoking a joint, and Ronnie Davis. And he looked at me, and he was younger. I was in school with his sister, so he didn't know all of the people that I knew. And he goes, oh yeah, we're talking. He goes, did you know a guy named J.C. Hoskins? He didn't realize that J.C. played in the band, because he was younger. I mean, he knew the band, but he didn't know all the guys. And I didn't say anything. I said, yeah, I know J.C. And J.C. were like that. We were inseparable. And just like casual conversation, oh yeah, well he got killed.
Wow.
I lost it. I went, I couldn't even breathe. And then I made a phone call about it. Yeah, he got killed. And I think I stayed drunk for 3 months. They almost had to put me in the my mom wanted to put me in the recovery rehab. No, I almost died. He was as close as my brother, if not closer. I mean, I love my brother dearly. Because Jay and I from school, and Al, and that was all my formative years. You know, so that was another sad. We did that. They kicked down each other's head. Wow. Just, I had Jerry died like 2 years ago, and we talked all the time. I always apologize. Every time I tell Michael Berry, I'm sorry for what the band did. And one of the last conversations we had, he says, man, he says, you don't know how much I appreciate that. He says, you're the only person that's ever felt. I said, thanks. You know, what else can I say other than thanks? He took us to New York. He got us hooked up. And then when Dale decided that we weren't getting enough food, and he was really spoiled, you know. The Hotel Albert to him was like, well, it was a dive.
Yeah, yeah.
But I loved it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
With the rest of the band. Loved it, but Dale was just 3 squares a day, and he was driving an exotic fossil baby that was probably he only made like 12 of those cars.
Jesus Christ, I never knew that. Wow.
Yeah, there's a fossil baby, and he had one, and he was really pampered. So he wasn't used to roughing. And so that blew us out of the water there. And then he did go to California, and that version of Hooley broke up in California was because, once again, Dale didn't want to eat chicken with the boy. You know, he had to have a steak. So he came back. He said, "No, I'm gonna fly back to Cleveland, and I'll be back." So he flew back to Cleveland. Got his girlfriend, Dario, his first wife, and he drove back in a brand new Austin Healey, and his dad bought it. So Dario, you don't have to fly, you don't have to take the bus, I'll buy you a car, so I buy one new Austin Healey, brand new Austin Healey. So he came back, and then we still were doing the roast battles, but Dale just was used to having money. He says, well, I'm going home, I'm not going to play anymore. He says, I can't do this anymore, and his girlfriend was the real reason. She didn't want 3 people sleeping in one room, 4 in another room, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And he came back and he walked right into the James Gang. He had no intentions of playing anymore. He came back and said, I'm going to quit. He was going into photography.
Huh.
He came back when all those guys went to school together. You know, Jimmy Fox and Dale, they were in the Governors together down at Ohio State. And by that time, the James Gang was taken off, and they did the first album, and the rest is what it is.
I was shocked to learn from Al that even while the James Gang, was first and second albums, Jimmy was still going to architecture school with Al.
Yeah.
And, that says a lot. He didn't know that band was going to do what it did.
And that was the beauty of it. Nobody knew anything. We got out and played, and the industry's changed so much until I'm part of it, but I'm not. Yeah, I see shows like America's Got Talent and American Idol, and I just want to throw a brick through the TV. And it's like a double-edged sword, because there's good kids on there. I mean, there's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Then I'm going, but you didn't work for it. This is all corporate stuff. This is your mommy and daddy. Everybody's mom and dad buys them basketballs and guitars. Because if you can't make it in school, become a musician, try your hand there, or become a sports figure. Nobody's working for it. You know, the Disciples, it was a garage band. You don't hear garage bands anymore.
No.
You know, if they're in the basement recording their first album, well, I'll put a band together, and I'll go, oh yeah, I've actually talked to some kids. Oh yeah, we'll put a group together. I said, oh yeah, what are you doing? Well, we've been together for like 3 months. I said, go, would you like a copy of our CD?
Well, and right here is the reason why you don't have garage bands anymore. You've got the technology to record at probably 10 times the level that the 60s masterpieces we love were recorded at.
I miss the static. My goals are different now. I'm not going to Hollywood. My spandex pants don't fit anymore. Those days are over. So now I'm doing it just for fun, and we put like a House of Swing, host 12 people. I had more fun there Saturday night than just because I'm playing with guys. But the business is so saturated. I mean, unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in stage props, well, you can't get a booking. There's no clubs. Where are you going to play? Here, I got a good group of guys. Butchie Armstrong has a good group of guys. You know, I'm crazy about Butchie Armstrong.
Well,
there's no place to play. Doing all cover tunes. We'll probably start writing. But the cover tunes we're doing, nobody's doing.
Like what?
We're doing like Outside Woman Blues. We're doing things that nobody, some early Lonnie Mac stuff. And people are coming to see us.
Records.
Yeah. We're doing Save Your Money from the song. It's just a B-side of one of his things. It might be the B-side of Wham or Lonnie on the Move. But the people that are coming to hear us are high age now, you know. And they're all looking at us going, you guys have the best set list. We're not playing any tunes that any of the other bands are playing. Because what's happening now in Cleveland, I'm sure you go out, is everybody's working the same playlist. You hear Going Down, you hear this, you hear All Along the Watchtower. You hear, they're like traditionals. It's like playing Louie Louie. And the next person that asks me to play Mustang Silence, my head's gonna explode. I do that in Germany, and people go crazy. I'm going, oh, they love it in Germany.
Yeah, the blues have always been more accepted than in Europe. I mean, that's why the chess guys had to go play England and were treated like stars. And
I'm leaving again in September. I'll be gone for 3 weeks. Now they got me booked in Spain, which is ironic. I'm going with the best guitar players in the world to try to play blues. Now, but back to your machine, my mind goes sideways. We were actually renting a house outside of France, and the drummer puts this together, named Simon Boos. And I met him in Clarksdale, of all places. He says, well, next time, I've been going there the last 3 years, I go to Germany. I said, well, this time, why don't we, he says, I'll rent a house. He goes, well, we'll do like a sting thing. He says, we'll record, we'll just stay in the house and record. So that's what we're going to do this time. We'll do a couple shows and get back out.
what city?
Actually, he lives in Krachel, on Bruchsal, which is
Okay.
about 60 miles outside of Frankfurt. It's just a little country place. I love it. I'm there. My phone doesn't work. It's great. I just completely decompress. And I actually taught a course last year. They do a thing like the Cleveland Institute, Music Institute. And I didn't realize that's the way the schools are set up. Well, you've been in Germany. When the kids reach a certain age in Germany, they'll call you in as a parent and go, your kid excels at basketball, he excels at sports, he excels, and they tailor they will put you in a school that will accommodate what your things are.
Right.
So the school that Simon's in is all the kids want to be actresses, aspiring musicians, and just being able to play the music and talking to the kids, it's a whole different world. They take music very seriously, and if you're an artist, whether it be country, blues, whatever your forte is, if you're an actor or an artist, there's a place for you to go.
Yeah.
That you will get support. Here, it's like,
if you're not going to produce money, we're not going to gamble on you producing art that might pay off.
yeah, and it's really unfortunate. So, I'll get to record with these guys and do some things. The bass player actually filled in for the bass player with Toto, Andre Tignoli. He lives in Italy, so he's flying in, and then we got our bass players coming in from Mississippi. So that I'm looking forward to.
So Clarksdale and the Crossroads brings up, Robert Johnson and then to Robert Jr.
Yeah. Do you ever stay at if you ever go to Clarksdale, stay at the Shack Up Inn?
Promising title.
It's all Quonset huts. It's
Wow.
all slave quarters. It's a plantation.
Wow.
And or you can pull it up when you get a minute. You're gonna go, oh my God! I mean, they're Quonset huts. And if we pulled in there, it was we pulled late at night, and I'm going, I don't want to stay here. There's got to be roaches and bugs in this thing. But they do things with lamps and things. Everything is on the premises. Nothing fancy. Old beds. Everything's squeaky clean. But I opened the door the next morning. It was like 98. It was like 10 in the morning. And it sounds weird. I think I had visions. Maybe it's a flashback. But I looked across. I'd never seen cotton before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a mirage from the heat wave. It's like I could see people out there picking.
Wow.
Literally. And I stood there and I couldn't believe that was a whole different. I'm going, this is really where the blues came from. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't imagine being out in those fields from whenever time they had to get up, probably daybreak, until early hours of the night when they're losing slaves, losing daylight. You ever held a cotton plant? They have thorns.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea. I'm out there pulling them, and these things have stickers on them. I thought they were all soft puffy balls and snakes. And then they come in and they stay in these Quonset huts, and I'm going, no wonder there's a blues. And the crossroads that everybody goes to in Clarksdale is not the crossroads. That's where they film, they put the sign. The crossroads is further out. And nobody wants to go out there. So I went out.
Because it's spooky or haunted, or
yeah, it's kind of like a holy place for this. Nobody in Clarksdale. I mean, Clarksdale, you could run through Clarksdale on a bicycle, you'd be through in 10 minutes. There's Muddy Waters Museum, and one music shop, which is like walking to somebody's house.
So the crossroads was like on Route 49 or Highway 51.
51.
Yeah, 51.
Yeah, you go take 51 all the way in, and I was getting it because we played there with Jared, and the people come down there to stay in those huts, and they are huts. They're Quonset huts, and to play at Morgan Freeman's club because all the blues guys come through. Anybody that comes through signs the wall. Stevie Ray's down there. Stevie left a guitar down there. Who else was down there? Clapton signed a guitar down there.
Tell me about your experiences with Robert Jr. Lockwood. I mean,
Robert, that's an interesting thing. It's like I've always known Robert. I don't know how I've always known Robert, but he used to, probably through Glenn, and I used to follow him around because he's a real deal. And I didn't really understand him at first. I'm going, I mean, he was just, because he, as traditional as a blues player as he was much more sophisticated. He really was him and Little Milton were good friends, and he was a studio guy.
Yeah.
You know, so his playing was really hot, not like Glenn hot, a different. And he followed me around, not following me around, but I was playing in, we got to the point where we knew each other pretty well. And I was drinking a lot. I was playing in the flats, the old flats. And I was so drunk, and he walked up, you know, look, and he cussed like crazy. He said, "Come here." I was wobbled over. He said, "Sit down." I said, "What?" He goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" He goes, he says, "You got all this talent." He says, "And you're just pissing it away. What the fuck is your problem?" Okay, Mr. Lockwood. So I cut down drinking. I didn't really stop, but to me it was cutting back. And then when he saw me, I was sober. He says, "You quit?" I said, "Yeah, you had a lot to do with it." He really did. Like, you know, Sharon had the most to do with it. But he was the first one to yank my chain and go, "You got," you know, he gave me, it was kind of a boost. He was telling me I was an asshole in a nice way. But at the same time, he gave me this little spark, like, wow, Mr. Lockwood thinks I have some talent. Maybe I better listen, because I wasn't taking myself seriously. I never take myself seriously. But I figured, well, if this guy says I might have a shot at it, and a couple other people says, you know, you're not wasting your time, so. Then I'd see him, and he'd come down to the Cascade, because I played when I came home to Cleveland, from PG&E, it was, especially after Andy got killed, the keyboard player, I said, "I'm done. I'm done." And then I got a call that, "Come down to this club," and my old bass player, Luther, Charlie Christopherson, and his brother and Luther and I toured Colorado. He says, "We'll come down to St. Clair, there's the guy I want you to hear, and he needs a guitar player." "Yeah, I'll go down." And Mr. Lockwood had told me about it. He says, "Yeah," he says, "Guitar Slim." He says, "He's one of the last guys in Wallace Coleman." So I went down and I heard Slim, and I'm going, I play better than this guy. I'm listening. There's little clubs. It was a juke joint, packed. I said, "Oh, hell, I can roll with this guy any day." So he says, "Well, come back next week." His hands were as big as your thing there. And he says, "Come back and, yeah, bring your guitar and we'll play." And he went, because I can play it. You know, I'm really a good rhythm guitar player. I love playing lead, but I pride myself on being able to play really good rhythm. I said, "Oh, yeah." And 24 years later, I was still with Slim. I played with him that whole time. And I became his, like B.B. King had a guy, I was Slim's guy. I tuned his guitars. He couldn't tune. He couldn't. Mr. Lockwood always used to him. I'd love to hear him sing, but I don't think he plays too good. But you could sit there for 40 minutes and hear all the wrong notes in the world. But when he hooked up two that were right, he'd bring tears to your eyes. Because he really was the real deal. I mean, he's the last, everybody that plays blues will go, Slim was the last real blues guy to come out of Cleveland, because we lost Lockwood. And Wallace played harmonica with Lockwood for years. And they'd all come down and sit at and listen to Guitar Slim, man. Man, when he hooked up, oh, Jesus Christ. You know, he hit a lot of bad notes. And at the time we were both drinking. I wasn't drinking, he was drinking. But when he put on his, he called it his pipe, his slide. "Hand me my pipe." And I handed it to him. He would just make you cry. He was just, it was incredible. And I couldn't get him off of St. Clair. That's when the band broke up. They wanted us to play at Lockwood's second anniversary. It might have been the first of his passing. And they did that benefit at the Beachland.
Yeah.
With Nick Amster put it on.
I know Nick.
You know, Nick and...
Nick wins the award for best hairdo for the century.
Nick cracked me up. But he called me, he goes, "Can you get Slim?" I said, "Yeah, I'll get the band." He goes, "I don't want the band." He says, I need you and Slim to play in front, the All-Stars, the junior, Schlock was All-Stars. I said, okay. So I got Slim. Slim said, yeah, man, let's do it. And the drummer, who had a death wish on Slim, his drummer was terrible. But Slim had raised him since he was a little boy, and his only claim to fame was playing with Slim. And I told his daughters, I said, they want us to come down, me and your dad are going to do this thing. Well, when little James found out that's the drummer, the next thing I know, I'm getting a phone call. I got to let you go. I said, what's this all about? Well, I hear you're trying to break up the band. I said, what? So then I got a temper. So I went down to the club and I did the last show with him. I took his daughters and Slim outside, and I told James, I said, you stupid motherfucker. I said, you're going to keep Slim on this corner until he dies. I said, you don't want to see him go anyplace? He's been down here. I said, whenever he gets a chance to go out of town or something, you find a reason for him not to go. And see, Slim couldn't read or write. So he was totally dependent. Yeah, I go, oh, okay. To me, that's not the measure of a man. He put 6 kids through college. So he did something right. But you don't realize, and it took me a long time to get through my head, well, let's go to Akron now. We can play Canton. There's clubs we can play other than it. Then it dawned on me. Little James always drove him, or somebody drove him. He couldn't read signs. And yeah, I saw you just go, you don't think of it. He can drive, he drove all around Cleveland, he drove how to get around, but if you want to take 71 to go to Akron, get off at such and such exit.
Or read the map.
He couldn't do it, so he was totally counting on little James, so James had total control.
I have to say, the look you saw on my face was literacy, affects that of traveling. It's not just reading a book and being able to be educated. I never even thought about, Jesus Christ. You think about the shackles. I was assuming we were going in the story that guy controlled him or dominated him. No, partially, or he was helping him through his literacy or illiteracy. Wow.
He wasn't helping. James, I realized, had his own agenda, and because James is a terrible drummer. Since Slim died, nobody uses James. Bob Frank called him. I just had dinner with Bob Frank about 2 weeks ago. And in fact, I saw him last night, or Saturday. And we were talking about Slim because, yeah, man, I said that because I really miss Slim. You don't play with somebody for 24 years and not miss him. He was the real deal. I mean, really the real deal. And I said, well, didn't you use little James? And I got this smile on my face. And I said, how'd that work out? And he looked at me and he goes, well, let me just say, he says, it was a real long show. He's the worst drummer in the world. But they hired him because they figured he used to play with Slim, and he can't play. He just knew how to play with Slim, and Slim knew how to show him. He was a pounder. Yeah. He couldn't play. But Slim did 1 CD, and they never finished it. It's real rough, but it's real barrel house and unproduced.
I'm thinking, I think I videoed you guys. I mean, something in my head's telling me I recorded the band at some point.
Only place we would play, like the Glenville Festival. He did all the inner city clubs from after hour joints.
I'm thinking like the WRUW folk and international festivals, no? Okay.
James would have never let him do it.
Okay.
But James killed him. James killed us. And Robert used to tell Lockwood, he says, man, we got to get him off the corner. And Slim used to go, this is my corner. I built 79th in St. Clair. When Slim was alive and we were playing at that club, and the only reason we stopped is because we broke up because of James' nonsense. We played Friday and Saturday, and you couldn't get in.
What was the name of that club?
The Cascade.
Cascade.
It's still down there, but when I left the band, about a week later, Slim said, I'm through with James. The light came on his head. And I'm the only guitar player that could play behind Slim. He had a bunch of guitar players. Slim was a hard guy. He was traditional. He'd call you out in the middle of the song, watch your time. And it was him. You're playing the wrong notes. It was him. Everybody in the audience knew Slim was screwing up. But I could take the hits.
Yeah.
You know, if I have to be your go-to guy for the blame, I'm cool with that. Do that. But he wouldn't play a show unless I was playing. Is Chip playing? It got to the point where he never had to ask. He just knew. I'm always there. That got on James's nerves. So after I quit, they did a couple shows and Slim couldn't get anybody to play behind him, not that he wanted. So he didn't play for about a year. And then a guy named Earl the Pearl, harmonica player, used to sit in, started booking Slim. So we started doing some clubs downtown. We played for 6 or 7 years without Little James, with a killer band. I mean, the band was just over the top. I mean, a real good blues band. Slim was in seventh heaven. And yeah, Slim died in my arms.
Wow.
Literally died in my arms. At his last show, on 93rd and Kinsman, at the V Lounge, VIP Lounge. We had I don't know, it was a Saturday or Sunday, probably Saturday. And I can't remember. The Slim's been gone 5 years, 6 years. And I pulled in, and he'd had a pacemaker put in, and some issues 5 or 10 years before. And I pulled in the parking lot, and Slim was sitting in his van. And I'll never forget this. He was slowing down. When I walked up to the truck, because I said, I'm like a gasoline. So I opened the side door and got his amp and his guitar out, because I didn't want him carrying it because he had a pacemaker. And he was 83, 84. He was sitting behind the wheel. It was it was a sunny day. And I looked in at it. It looked like somebody had taken copper powder. Copper. And gone poof on his face. He had this copper complexion.
Like jaundiced?
No, I saw him. I told him when that happened, it was for his pacemaker. I told him before, that's another story, but I told this kid, he's got to go to the hospital because he turned ashy. Because he was dark, he turned like ashy color. And, something's wrong. 2 days later, he had a massive heart attack. No, because Slim was not a dark-skinned guy. He was a milk chocolate colored guy.
Yeah.
You know, not dark. But I looked in the van, I said, maybe it's just the sun coming out. It really looked like somebody had taken, you see these new makeup pencils that the girls are using?
The glitter shit.
Yeah, and it looked like somebody had sprayed it. I'm going, that's the weirdest thing, it must be the sun. Didn't think anything about it. He came in the club, and by that point, I always opened the show. You know, he always he's doing, go up there and do what you gotta do. He said, that sounds good. So I gotta go and I'd play, and that became a regular thing. Then I'd open up, and then I'd do the whole first set, and then the second set he'd come up. And he came up, I had his guitar, he had a white Strat, and he was always screwing with the ladies, and he could kick as high as that. Even in his 80s, he was so limber, it was nuts. And we put on his guitar, and we were doing Smokestack Lightning, and he's in a small club, and he's messing with some girl sitting on the stool. And he used to stick his guitar between his legs and ride his guitar, and they come out, come on Slim, ride your guitar. He put his guitar between his legs, and he fell backwards. And I threw my guitar, and something was wrong. I got to him, and I knew then he was gone. I tried CPR, you know, knocked him out, and he just laid there, you know. I hit him up for a minute, and he was gone. And I knew he was gone, but his kids were there. And one of his daughters were there, and they called an ambulance. It took them 33 minutes to get to the police station's on the corner. And that ambulance got there, well, it was the wrong address, and they took 93rd off of Kinsman. Well, this is Woodland. I said, it's the one side of 93rd is 93rd, and at Kinsman, which is Chagrin, going toward Shaker, going toward South Woodland. As soon as you turn the corner, it turns to it's Woodland. they knew where the club was because they were breaking the fights. It was a rowdy club. There was always somebody getting shot in front of the club or someone having to call an ambulance. And that was to where the EMTs were on that corner, literally 200 yards away. And it took them 33 minutes. Oh no, that was on the news. His kids were trying to sue the city. So by the time they got there, but he was gone before they got there. And I was sad. And then I was real sad. I was heartbroken. And on the way home I was thinking, when I go, I gotta go like that. I gotta go with a white Stratocaster, screwing with some girl, kicking my leg in the air. Well, what better way could a blues guy go? He wouldn't have wanted it any different.
Yeah.
I went, he did it again. He got out and he did it his way.
That's beautiful.
They're supposed to be naming a street after him downtown, Guitar Saloon Lane, because they got Robert Lockwood.
Right,
He's
down in the flats there.
No, he's not. Wasn't as big. As well known as Guitar Slim was, he wasn't international like Robert. But he lived off of like 67th and Euclid, that way. So they're one of the lanes, one of the side streets, they're going to name Guitar Slim. And after he passed, and I was with him 24 years, I didn't know, because he was a gruff guy. Kind of like Muddy Waters. I mean, we got along great. He cussed me out on stage, I cussed him out. He used to look at me and go, I was the only person that would ever cuss back at him. He cussed me out one night. I said, I turned around, I went nuts. I said, you fucking idiot, are you out of your fucking mind? He went, and we got along great, because I was the only person that would ever get back in his face. But after he died, I found out that he has a company. It's called the Black Amish. He always worked the garden. He loved being in the garden. And the city gave him lots.
Yeah.
I don't know, that makes sense. I'm thinking, well, he's taking home, he's got 900 kids, so he's having fun. Everything he grew, everybody in the neighborhood knew that when he didn't have food or vegetables, they came to Slim. Slim was growing it for the neighborhood.
Wow.
He never mentioned it. The mayor showed up at his funeral. People showing up going, Guitar Slim did this for the community. I'm going, wait a minute, he never mentioned it because he wanted to keep up that I'm a bad facade.
Yeah.
I'm a gangster.
I'm not going to show
I'm not going to show anything. But deep down inside, and I knew him, I always used to tell people, I said, he's a cupcake. He's like Butch.
Yeah.
Once he lets his guard down, he lets you in, then you can read him. You can go to all this bravado is just that. That's all it is. But under all of that, he's one of the kindest, gentlest humans. Al came down to the club one night. He wasn't very comfortable. This was a 79th in St. Clair, and this was the Zulus who ride their motorcycles out front. I mean, these are people out of Arkansas. These are real Southern folks. I mean, sharecroppers. These are all Slim's following. And he had that following for almost 35 years.
Well, that's a very diverse neighborhood. Jen actually used to live down there. And you've got the Arab people, you got black people, you got white and Asian people, all mixed together right there.
Never had a problem. But Al was from the burbs. And it was kind of a heavy mix for him. He stood like this, like, nobody's gonna bite you. You're all right, you're cool. So that was.
Don't fuck up.
Don't fuck up. Don't. No, actually the drummer. I can talk about Slim forever. The drummer at the Cascade, bass player we were working with was dating the barmaid. Make a long story short, there ended up being a shootout in the bar. And a guy came in and shot my guitar bag. They were shooting across the stage.
Jesus.
No, literally, they were shooting at the bass player. And I'm going, and it hit, I have a power, surge suppressor, like a rack mount, for myself, a line conditioner. It hit that, and I said, oh God, put it. And I got home, and I realized there was a bullet hole in my guitar bag. And it had gone right past my leg. I was standing next to it. But in the process, the gunshot went off. Everybody's ducking for cover, and I'm pushing old ladies down on the ground. It looked like they were filming Porgy and Bess in there. I saw more peacock feathers and derbies. And club was very colorful. And the drummer, I'm going, shit, I said, they're shooting at Clarence. James, he's real southern, he goes, I think I've been shot. And shot him in the foot.
Wow.
Which was next to my guitar bag, because I let off a couple rounds. And he used to piss me off. And I said, you know, they should have shot you in the other foot because you played better. I used to tell him, we didn't like each other, we tolerated each other. I said, you know, you played better when you shot you in the foot. There's no love lost, but very colorful place.
But you brought up, you know, or reacted to the Peter Lofner picture and all that. You know, obviously he started off as a bluesman from Lakewood. You know, talk about Peter and you know where Peter went with, you know, Ubu and Rockets before that. And love to hear some firsthand, you know.
I knew Peter and I knew each other. We hung out together at Coventry because he was real good friends with the girl I was going with down there. And I knew him kind of before the repair Ubo, because we were working at Viking Saloon. That's with Todd Sharp and all that. So
Todd Sharp worked at the Viking Saloon?
No,
he was with you and E.T. Hooley. Yeah.
You know, like house band. There was. But I didn't go. I'm ashamed to say that. I may have caught them once or twice because their music was too eclectic for me. Just like I love Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
I don't own one of his records.
Yeah.
I loved him.
I won't listen to it, but I liked seeing him at Music Hall.
Right.
He was creative,
Exactly.
but I don't ever have a drive to throw on a song because none of them have done this or this to me too much.
No.
It's like comedy.
Yeah.
You know what? I never knew Charlie Wiener was in the first incarnation of Rockets. And so when you think where Charlie's, you know, gone to being a stand-up comedian at this point, you know, it kind of makes sense because when you think about David Thomas, he is an absurd commentator, you know.
All right. Charlie, I mean, you see, Charlie was bartender at the Viking Saloon.
Oh.
When we were playing down there, so we used to come up and Charlie and I were good friends. And he was funny. He was always funny and one of the nicest guys. He's always been. Then he had Charlie Wiener and the Wienerettes when he had his daughters behind him. They called them the Wienerettes. I couldn't believe he did that.
Well, I'm living with one of the Wienerettes. Jennifer sang on one of his CDs.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how musically talented he was until years afterwards. Because I just knew he was one of the funniest guys I was ever around. Once in a while he would pick up a guitar in the club. It was never an acoustic because the Viking Saloon was electric. All the clubs are electric guitars.
Mm.
I think there were a couple. The Grange on Taylor Road.
Yeah.
That used to be a coffee house. And even the Brick Cottage at one time was...
Well, the one that turned into the Grange was where Bill Miller and, what's his name, Alex Bevan met, or did their first professional shows. They met at Le Cave and then could get gigs at what turned into the Grange.
Yeah, that was but see, I didn't do that circle. I've always been like really, I'd listen to electric guitar, so I wasn't closed-minded. I loved all kinds of music. Polka, you love it. I mean, put it on. There's always something good about it. But there was too much happening, and at the time there was all the hullabaloos, all the parties. There's 1,000 places I was playing. I didn't really have, on my days off, I was getting drunk or partying with my buddies. So I didn't want to go sit and listen to folk.
Right.
You know, it was just, I appreciated them. I knew Alex Bevan, and, you know, Carolyn Hart. Me and Carolyn Hart did a project together. Jonah Cosell and I did a project together.
Was he a coffee house folkie at the beginning?
Who's that?
Jonah.
No, Jonah was...
Pre-Michael Stanley Band, I don't know anything about him.
He went to Beechwood, isn't it? Gary is his real name.
Shh.
I know. I do that to Butch one time. I go, hey, Joe, I mean Butch. Because it's Joe. You know, we did it. Billy Bass wanted us. He says, why don't you and Jonah do this thing? So we rehearsed a couple times, and Jonah did the Devil's, I can't, what the hell's the name of that song? Devil's Out to Get Me for playing rock and roll.
Oh.
I still remember the song. He never recorded it. Holy Mama, got me on the run. Devil's Out to Get Me for playing rock and roll. And very cool song. And then it's like with Gary Linhart. I was a rock and roller. I mean, I was a rock and roller. I was a die-hard rock and roller. I do know that. But Hooley kind of firmed it up, and this was after Hooley. So I was uncomfortable doing something like Joan and Michael Stanley. Michael and I don't really see eye to eye. I like Michael, but
yeah, I don't know.
I like him.
I like him, and I don't know. It was the realization of leaving Cleveland and that our biggest thing wasn't shit anywhere else, and yeah, he's got some songs. I can't remember the last time I wanted to play any that for me to listen to, but you know, Rosewood Bitters is a beautiful song.
That was his kicker. That's when he really started getting. And I couldn't believe he sold out. What was it? Blossom 2 nights in a row.
Like 4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, sold the record.
But when in LA, they go who? Michael who? What's a Michael Stanley? Nobody. So it was real local.
Yeah.
And
you know what? The industry could support that at that point. You know, you didn't have to. As long as you could move 250,000 records or whatever, you know, they'd sign them. But what a run! And then realizing, cripe, it really wasn't anything but a regional band. And
but that's back to Disciple days, when like right after school, like the beginning after Disciples, Hooley, Missing Links thing. We were already talking about. You could play every night, and we could play a different club. And so it just all dried up. I don't know what happened. All the hustles went out. Maybe it was because everybody grew up.
Yeah.
Or the industry changed. But then there was never a shortage of places to play or a venue for whatever you were playing. If you wanted to do all originals, you could play a place, and people would come and see you. Now if you do originals, Barners they don't want originals. They want Mustang style. They want to hear. We got to keep the crowd interested, so it stifles your musical ability. Your creativity goes out the drain. Butchie, Lord knows Butch is a hell of a guitar player. Billy Coakley, he's got the best band in Portland. You know, Michael Barrett
is incredible.
By far, he's got two of the best guys.
You know, sure change the fucking set list after 20 years.
Because he can't.
I know.
It won't work. And that's the tragedy. He's between the biker clubs, which is great, it's his venue. He plays his ass off. But if he were to put an original song in there, people would go, what are you doing?
Yeah, what is this? I don't know it.
Yeah, it's that familiarity thing. So that's what I'm doing with my band. Somebody asked me, Rosalie calls you. She well, maybe you should, throw in a couple songs that, people know, I'm not saying, she gets this look, I'm not saying to do it. This was like a week ago. I said, what makes you think I'm playing for these assholes? I didn't mean it in the back. I said, I'm not playing for those people. I'm playing for me. I said, at this point in my life, I've played for other people. I've played shows and having to do tunes I didn't want to do. This one's just for me. It's not the best band I've ever been into. But if you like what I'm doing, that's terrific. If you don't,
there's another bar for you to go to.
That's where I'm at with it at this point. So I think the Disciples, they're having another Orange High reunion, and the girl called me and said, she goes, well, we're having another reunion, but no music is here, I'm sorry. Because the last time we played, the people were sitting at the table and I looked at Al, I said, that's it. I said, that's 50 for the Disciples, let's call it a day. Because now all these people want to do is sit and talk about their grandkids, and I'm still
brag about the life they begat.
I'm still looking at where's the beer, I saw the same. I guess it's the Peter Pan syndrome. I'm not interested. I got grandkids. I got great grandkids. I go out to have fun. I go to the part of what we did in school was the music, the art, and the camaraderie. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
When you're too old and you think the music is a disturbance, I don't want to play for you.
You don't want to be background patter.
That's it. So Avery and I go out, we do the things with his band, and we were crashing all the Orange High reunions. We would just go set up. And they finally got tired of him, so I talked to Avery. He says, I don't know, they got mad at us last time. I said, yeah, we crashed the Blue Corrals. That's one out in Solon, the restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Blue Canyon. Yeah.
Yeah, they had their reunion. We wheeled our shit in and did our stuff. And they were going, where'd these guys come from? I had no idea. I said, well, that's the kind of stuff we need to keep doing. So Al still wants to do Disciple Sins. I still want to do another Disciple reunion. I want to do a real one. I know there's good songwriters. I don't know them all. I know very few of them anymore. I'm sure there's still good writers here and kids that really have a desire and a passion to do it. But I feel sorry for them. There's no place for them to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like we were saying, you go in the basement or you get your recorder out and you put it online and hope for the best. You don't get a live audience response. You don't get to really milk your music and really massage it and get the best out of it. You put it out and you hope that it goes.
Yeah.
And I think it stifles the creativity because Lord knows there's some talented kids out here. But I think they're all getting. I can't name one place now that you can go and play original music.